Welcome. Who likes birds? Oh, you're in the right place. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes, and I'm going to imitate some birds, and I ask you to identify them.
Oh.
Who said chickadee? 2 points. Who's keeping score? Now, for something a little easier. Great horned owl.
Oh.
There are 9 species of owls around here. This one is a little more difficult. Close your eyes. Amy falcon, kestrel, merlin, peregrine falcon. When they're flying around and they're aggressive, that's what they're. Cardinal. You see a bird up in the sky. There are 3 different forms, shapes, that can help you identify what it is. Now, you've all seen turkey vultures up in the air. Their wings are like in a V, and they soar. They pick up thermals, hot air, and they just flat wings, eagles and hawks. No, they flap as well. And all the falcons, they have like a broken wing. Very thin, very narrow, but it looks like a broken wing. And they flap very, 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 very fast. I took a birding course with Dr. David Bird. That's his real name.
Wow.
And he taught ornithology in McGill University for 35 years, and he gave a seminar. And to draw our attention, to catch our attention, he said, next time somebody calls you a bird brain, take it as a compliment. I mean, you've all heard the usually negative connotations about, crazy as a loon, and it's for the birds and all that. Well, after we finish today, you'll realize that birds are pretty smart. A bunch of ornithologists in Britain did a study in one of the aviaries to see, and blue jays, nuthatches, and chickadees, if they would remember where they hid their seeds. And granted, it was a closed environment, and I figured in a closed, limited space, by trial and error, sooner or later you'll find a seed. Nevertheless, if they didn't remember, they would starve, right? So, but I've seen blue jays hide seeds in the lawn, and the next spring we have these beautiful sunflowers growing. So sometimes they do forget. But that's an indication of how smart the birds are. So just a little quick quiz. Anybody know this bird? Can you see it?
Wren.
If not, then I'll.
Wren.
Wren? Nah, it's a house wren. This is what a wren does. He fills up every nesting boxes and cavity that he can find to make sure that nobody else nests there. And this is what they do. And they're the tiniest bird aside from the hummingbird. Can you see this? It's an osprey. There's a nest. Can you turn around and have a look? There's a platform which we installed 3 years ago. I've seen them come in and drop branches. They never used it, but there is another one that's used every year. And the male goes to the Saint Francois River, picks up fish and feeds the young and the female, and then he stands on guard.
Blue jay.
Yay! Interestingly enough, a lot of the blue jays you'll get, if you have a feeder, you'll have them all winter, but most of them migrate. There's a location in southern Ontario where they keep track of all the migrating raptors, hawks, but they also keep track of the songbirds. One day, they counted 78,000 blue jays crossing Lake Erie. Thousands and thousands. It's if you're interested in knowing more, and you go to that location, you'll see thousands of hawks in kettles flying around, and they don't go over Lake Erie though. What they do is they go around because they can't fly long enough across the lake. Stupid songbirds and butterflies, they go across. The hawks figured it out. They just said, we just go around. You only need two things to go bird watching: binoculars and a guide. And now there are apps. I think somebody was using it. You take a picture, and it helps you identify. We have a lot of our birding club members. They use apps to call birds, and the birds come over, especially in the spring. I don't like that. I think it's kind of artificial. It's an intrusion as far as I'm concerned. But one day I was imitating, because in the spring, if you imitate birds, like cardinals and the white-throated sparrows, they'll come to you, or they'll be curious, because, for two reasons. Because they, it's an intruder, especially if it's a male. Oh, there's somebody here, but what's going on? Or maybe a chance to mate. So I was imitating this white-throated sparrow, and he was flying around. I wanted to leave him alone. He wants to mate. I could go on for hours. I just thought because I'm sure some of you are probably getting cold, and we're going to go for a walk. But before, if you have any questions, anything else you expected that we'd be talking about?
I'm just curious, is there, is that a camera to take pictures of what's
Yeah.
going on?
The camera is a panoramic camera, so it goes back and forth, and so we can play back. The visitor center hasn't been active for the last 2 years because of COVID, so it's unfortunate because our birding club used to host people here 2 days a week as volunteers. We had a summer student working here, and so there's quite a bit of activity. As a matter of fact, before we go for a walk, I'd say the first thing you do when you come to a location to bird watch, you find a spot exactly like this, turn around, and you watch, and sooner or later something will happen because there is a pond there. So there could be geese, ducks flying around. See, the robins are flying back and forth. So you have to take time to sit down somewhere and just contemplate and watch what's going on. Most birds, when they migrate, have up to 3 weeks fat reserve to survive, because most birds in the spring move and migrate within 24 hours, because migration is instigated by the amount of daylight. So whether it's 10 feet of snow, they're coming up. Now geese are a little smarter. They'll send scouts to check out the territory if there's, and then they'll go back. And so I get reports around Kingston, there's snow geese. We still have 10 feet of snow, they're not coming. So, but most of the birds, in terms of, now in the fall, migration is all over the place. It's contingent on the amount of food and the weather and everything else. I went to southern Ontario to watch the hawk migration, and there were no songbirds because I was hoping to see some songbird. They hadn't even started migrating because the sky is blue, there's food, and people will say, Mike, how come I see a lot of birds in the spring migration and in the fall I don't see them? Any idea why? Prevailing winds. The currents, the wind currents are different in the spring and fall, so they use those to navigate and travel. There are all kinds of little holes here. Do you know what that is?
Bugs.
Bugs?
Woodpecker.
Woodpecker. What kind? Yellow-bellied sapsucker. Now you know what they do? They poke holes, the sap comes out, and they drink the sap. But the sap attracts insects, so then they get to eat the insects as well. So it's kind of a double whammy. When you go for a walk, like in the Cooper Marsh, you're not only going to see and hear birds, you're also going to see a lot of aquatic animals. Like we have otters and mink and
Frogs.
yeah. Well, we have people who do frogs studies, turtles, and so there's much more going on than just birds. I mean, if you're a birder, you probably want to see birds, but there are other animals. And in the winter, if you come in the winter, you'll see tracks, and you say, "Oh my God, this is all happening right here." Now, a lot of people think birds migrate like an airplane from here to Miami in 3 hours. Swallows take about 6 weeks when they migrate. I get reports as they leave Venezuela, they get into southern U.S., and so they come in stages, and it takes them 6 weeks. And there is an 80% mortality in migrating birds because throughout this time, if they don't find food or they get into a hurricane or they get predated, so only a few of them survive and come back, unfortunately. Normally, this kind of outing, it takes 2 hours, and we've done it in an hour. And so we don't get any prizes for it. But no, it's just because it's not practical. It's cold, but also it's getting dark. But this is the end of the tour here, so I want to thank you very much for coming out.